Welcome to the Education in Isolation podcast with me, Angela Connell, where we will explore the challenges of businesses moving from a face-to-face training mode to an online training environment. Many businesses have been caught off guard by the COVID-19 pandemic, but the situation is proving to be a catalyst for new possibilities and opportunities for the training industry. Let me and my guests help you make the most of these opportunities and to navigate the transition so that you and your organisation come out stronger and more resilient than when you went in. Education is the answer and you are the leader. Hi and welcome, Jeremy, to the Education in Isolation podcast. We're so excited to have you on our podcast and giving us a bit of background about where you're at and who you are and how COVID-19's affected you and how we're going to be able to move forward and help our clients as well. So who are you and what do you do?
Well, thanks, Angela. Awesome to be with you today. My name is Jeremy Harris and I'm the lead Chief Financial Officer in a business called the Grow CFO Co, which I co-founded with my wife, Deborah, about 2 years ago. And prior to that, I was a co-owner of I guess I would say typical tax accounting business for about 20 years. And I got to the point where I found that, probably two things. I've discovered that my personality type is not that of a typical accountant. And I discovered that through a variety of ways, but I actually realized why. After 20 years, I was very frustrated being a tax accountant and very tired as well. I could do it, but it was really hard work. So over a period of a couple of years, I was able to make a transition into what for me was more fulfilling, to actually use numbers to help businesses look forward and to grow. Because after so many years of doing numbers just to fill in a tax form, looking backwards, looking at the past, I'd become exhausted and unfulfilled as well. So to actually help, especially fast growth businesses, to really understand cash flow and to plan what their future looks like and to predict the future is where we wanted to go. Hence we started the Grow CFO Co. Other than that, in terms of home life, I'm the father of 5 now teenagers and young adults, and that's been a very fulfilling part of life as well.
So we were having a chat just before we started about your business model. So your business model you've always been operating from home?
Well, as the Grow CFO Co, yes.
Yeah.
But in my tax practice, I had a team of about 20.
Yeah.
And so that was office-based. It was, we grew over that period of time that I was involved. Had a couple of partners at various stages. And when I actually sold out of that business and we started Grow CFO, there were probably two things I would say from that were really, really interesting realizations for me. One was in a tax accounting business, it's actually fairly easy to maintain because everybody has to come back every year and do their tax returns.
Yeah,
it might be a different thing. That's right. And it's so long as the customer service is good, then there's almost a guarantee of return business. When we went out and started from fresh, then it was a whole different thing to actually, to sell what we do, to create products and to sell. The other aspect is from going from a team in an office environment to 2 of us working remotely, working wherever we are in the world. It was a massive change of freedom, which we really appreciated, and we were really looking for that. at that stage of our life. It was also brought challenges in terms of everything came back to us. But in terms of the way that we work, for 2 years now, we've been working from wherever we are, primarily at home, but traveling throughout the world. We've done quite a lot of travel the last couple of years, and we're able to do what we do from anywhere. And in fact, a number of our business customers are in different parts of the world. So we're very regularly on Zoom meetings or Skype calls, and sometimes at unusual hours. So in that sense, even the recent period of time through COVID has not had a big impact on the way that we actually work.
So what would you say would have been the biggest challenge to your business since COVID-19?
It's really been, there's been a couple of stages in that. The first challenge was the fact that some of our biggest customers are in tourism and events globally. So those are two industries that have been really severely impacted. In terms of tourism, well, one business has a number of resorts and cafes and co-working spaces around the world. So there have been various stages of those having to contract or fully shut down. With events, events are basically became non-existent, certainly in-person events. So those businesses had an immediate impact on their cash flow, which impacted their ability to pay us. But at the same time, they needed us more than ever. Yeah. So that initial challenge was an impact on our cash flow and working out how to help them get through the short term and the medium term, and in some cases how to pivot their businesses as well. As we've continued through, the next phase is that our biggest challenge at the moment is actually becoming time and managing growth, because I think there's a sense of settling into a bit of a routine, a bit of a rhythm in the phase of COVID that we're experiencing now. There's still uncertainty, but there's week to week, there's a bit of a pattern for some businesses at least. So there's been an opening up of people having conversations with us about ways that we can help them. So at the same time as we are servicing our existing customers more than ever and providing, as one of our business mentors says, providing unprecedented value, we're also now experiencing a level of growth that we haven't had before.
Yeah. And so what does it look like when you're working with someone? So I know we work with you as well. And for me, I'd never had a CFO before in my business. I'd always done everything. So it was an interesting concept for me, and figures is not my area of expertise. So when you're, and particularly looking at the event and tourism industry, what's different that you do from what you were doing as an accountant? Because I think a lot of people think of a CFO like an accountant, but I've learned not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and there is definitely that element of it. I'll just use some terminology that I'll briefly explain, and some of your listeners may be familiar with this. This comes from a profiling tool called Wealth Dynamics. And there are different kinds of personality strengths. There's 4 main strengths, and there's a 5th one that comes in as well. But 2 of them, one is steel, and that's all about the detail. And the other one is, that I'll mention now, is dynamo, which is about creativity and new ideas. So typically an accountant would sit in steel. And I think that would be most people's perception of an accountant or a CFO as well. And that aspect is really important. The detail has to be right. The numbers have to be accurate to be able to know how a business is going and to make decisions based on those numbers. So that's definitely one part of what a CFO does. The other part, which is where our strength comes in, is in the dynamo, in that strategy. That is about going up to a higher level, looking down on the business from a higher level, and seeing what the vision is, seeing what the future is. Some of that is around what are the ideas, what are the things that can be implemented, but then having a schedule for those as well. And using the numbers to do that forecasting and really the decision making. Some decision making is steel based, but some is definitely dynamo based, which is about if we look at different options for the future, what are the outcomes of those? So in terms of what we do, and the whole premise of what we do being that so many businesses do need the expertise and the input and the strategy that a CFO can provide, but are not ready to have a CFO full-time in their business yet. So the premise of founding Grow CFO was to be able to provide access to that resource for businesses at a fraction of the price of having somebody do it full-time.
Yeah.
When we come into a business, usually the first thing we need to do is focus on the steel and make sure that the detail is correct before we can be looking at using the numbers to make decisions. But the real value that we add is in the strategy, in the dynamo area.
Yeah. And so thinking about where your clients are and where a lot of businesses are right now with COVID-19,
mm-hmm.
What would be some strategies that you would recommend just start up? What would they need to do to overcome? So you might be facing putting off staff,
mm-hmm.
Changing a model, pivot. Like pivot is like the word at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What strategies would you say someone would need to do first to identify where they need to go or where they are right now?
Yep. Well, that comes into different categories. So the first thing to do is just identify how has a business been impacted, if they have been, by the COVID situation. That's the first thing that we will do, like a triage. Because we're seeing three different scenarios through COVID. One is, I guess, in the middle, a business that is trundling along as normal. Perhaps they were already doing things remotely or online, so they're not impacted by any location change, by having to work from home. Maybe their customers are businesses or even consumers who have not been significantly impacted by COVID. So it's, to a degree, it's business as usual for those ones. But either side of that, we've got businesses that have been drastically impacted in a negative way by COVID. So, for example, events and tourism, where and food and beverage as well, anything hospitality, where they've either had to close or drastically reduce their operations. But then, way up the other side, there are businesses who are actually growing through this period, and there are some really interesting examples of that. So the approach depends on which of those categories a business falls into.
So the majority of our audience are people who were delivering traditional face-to-face training and they need to go online.
Yep.
So they're either a registered training organisation or they might be delivering non-accredited training. So the impact that we've seen is technology has been the barrier and how to do that. So, and some of them are in events and hospitality. And as you said, we've had some really good innovative cases that have come up as well. One big thing, international students who are doing commercial cookery who now don't have a job to go to do their work placement. And one of our clients has implemented a Feed the International Students program where they're getting their international students to cook for their other students.
Right.
So that was a good way where their students are still able to get the practical hands-on skills.
Yes.
Where there isn't any restaurants and cafes and things open at the moment.
Yeah.
So if you consider that, our podcast audience, what would you think would be challenges that they would need to overcome?
Well, that...
and particularly financially.
Yeah, for sure. There's a through this period, we've to address those different types of businesses that I mentioned, we've created a couple of products, and one is called the Pivot Plan. Although, as you mentioned before, that's become such a buzzword at the moment. Just this morning, we've been looking at what's an alternative word for pivot. But through that, the fundamental principles remain what I was talking about before, and that's assessing where a business is right now and what the known future contains. The difference is that actually has to be done much quicker than was the case before. An early step is to identify from the existing business what still remains, say as revenue sources, and then on top of that, what are the ways that that services or products can be delivered through different media or different strategies, and also what different products do their customers actually need through this period. And that starts actually with a conversation that they have with their customers to find out what the key needs are. And then with that, that really, from a financial point of view, is about creating a budget. What existing revenue will continue, and what is the potential from the new things that can be introduced. On the other side, there's of course the costs, and that is often going to be a matter of what costs can be trimmed or cut, and in some cases that means decisions around team as well. And those sort of decisions we've seen have had to be made very quickly. One business that we work with that has a global team of many hundreds of people had an experience through the GFC. They were operating through the GFC. And in the GFC, their approach had been to cut what they thought was enough to get them by. But then after a period of time, they found they had to cut some more, and then it still wasn't enough, so they had to cut some more. So looking back on that experience, the founder said that felt like death by 1,000 cuts. This time, the approach was go hard and go early. And
a bit like the airlines.
Yeah, that's right. And as soon as we can bring salaries back up, then let's do that. But at the moment, let's share the pain and share the gain. And there are ways that they will reward the team as things improve again. The other thing that they did in that particular example was to approach the team and say, instead of choosing people who we need to let go, we are approaching you and saying we want everybody to take a 40% cut in their income, and we'll make it up in other ways. We'll do that as soon as we can. And the team were fully on board with that. But having said that, we're probably past that stage for a lot of businesses now. Most would have made those sort of decisions. So there might be a little bit of cost trimming that can be done in the light of now seeing the results of any of the pivot strategies. But then the important thing, I guess the third aspect of this, so I've talked about revenue and I've talked about trimming costs. The third aspect that we're getting into now is from Australian businesses anyway, is to start to see some of the government support flow through. And that helps to frame some of the decisions that are made, especially around team as well. So really over the next couple of weeks, we'll see that come through in cash flow. And that will be very welcome for a lot of businesses.
And so when it comes to the government grants, so that was a good lead in there. So when it comes to that government funding, what would you recommend our audience should do straight away? Where should they go?
The first thing is to get familiar with the eligibility requirements. And in a lot of cases, that will be a matter of of speaking with your tax accountant or bookkeeper or a CFO, if you have an internal CFO or financial controller or finance team, then they would be getting across these rules as well. There are different elements to the support, some federal, some state. The two key ones from a federal point of view, one's called Cash Flow Boost, which starts to flow with the March business activity statements. And the other one is called JobKeeper, which is very much in the news at the moment. The first one is the eligibility is more open. The second one is specifically targeted at businesses who are experiencing at least, well, for most businesses, the threshold is at least a 30% reduction in their revenue. And there are ways to measure that. So that's step one, is checking eligibility. And working out the timing of when that eligibility might apply. In that as well, in that step one, I'll talk about I'll just mention identifying state level assistance that's available, and that of course varies from state to state. And some of it is shorter term and some of it is longer term. There are things like payroll tax relief, although that doesn't apply to most small businesses. Because that needs a significant payroll before that actually applies. And many businesses, of course, have reduced their payroll.
Yeah. And we're in the training industry. A lot of them hire their trainers as contractors. So they're not able to sustain keeping them on because of the contractors. What would you recommend for contractors?
For the businesses that engage contractors, or for the contractors themselves?
For their businesses that engage contractors. They still need to deliver training. They're now got to invest money into online learning platforms and other resources. One great thing has happened in South Australia. The South Australian government are offering up to $30,000 for registered training organisations to get their training online. But that's not happening in all states. So they're putting money into getting their training online. And some people are thinking, well, is this only temporary? Should I bother doing this? Should I just shut down? Or should I keep going? My recommendation is I see training industry changing forever, and you will need this online learning model because people are going to expect it. So if we look at the contractors that they've got, they need to keep going. They need to keep delivering their training. They need to keep selling, but they haven't got the money coming in to be able to sustain that.
The way that the two federal government packages are targeted, it relies on assessing team who are on the payroll. It's targeted in that way. Now those things though could apply at the contractor level for the contractors themselves. And that will depend on their structure, on their business structure. There are some who fall through the net on that, but a lot of contractors will actually be eligible for both of those programs, the Cash Flow Boost and the JobKeeper, through their own businesses themselves. So that will help to sustain them, and that helps the businesses that engage with them to continue with them and to come to commercial arrangements in this very different environment.
There's also some other areas that you may not know about. There's also government funding out there for training organisations. So as I said, that one in South Australia, but there's also going to be funding going to people who want to do training. Unfortunately, they're going to target only training organisations who already have contracts with their state governments for training, but there will be opportunities in those areas for them to, and I foresee whenever there is a big, and this is going through my 20 years of history in the training industry, whenever things like this happen, the first thing the government will do is throw money into training, particularly when there's high unemployment. So we will be looking into that into the future with what government funding our training industry should be accessing for that. But yeah, that was a really good overview of strategies that I think any organisation should put into place. Something I have been talking about with our members is that they really need to be putting a plan in place. So that aligns very much with what we've said that we need to do. Is there anything else that you would like to add to that with strategies that training industry should include?
Yeah, so I mentioned budget. So with that combination of looking at existing and alternative revenue and costs, and then now factoring in any of these government funding availabilities as well, then that helps to create a budget. And some businesses will have created budgets for 2020. They'll be thrown out the window at this stage. Yeah, so it's about creating a new budget and not down to the cent. It's not. We've got to move quickly on these things and keep it realistic but high level. So just getting something in place to forecast, say, the next 6 months. And then a really important thing that comes off the back of the budget is a cash flow forecast. Cash flow forecasts are often something that business owners groan about, and I totally get that. They're quite often only done when there's say a bank loan being applied for. But there's a different type of cash flow forecast which is super important for just monitoring what's going on and seeing the oxygen that is available or any gaps that are going to come up in the next short period of time. And that's to have a 13-week rolling cash flow forecast, 13 weeks being a quarter of a year. But a rolling cash flow forecast, so it's constantly pushing out another, as each week goes by, it's pushing out another week. So that comes out of the budget. And it's really important to recognize the difference between profit and cash flow, because they can be two very different things. And there can be, they involve different strategies as well.
So you can often have profit forward with no cash flow.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I got out of tax, is that at the end of a financial year, and quite often 6 months after the end of the financial year, I'm sitting down with a client presenting this beautifully prepared set of financial statements and a tax return that's perfectly filled out, and saying, congratulations, look at the profit you made last year. Here's your tax bill.
Where is it?
Like, well, that's great, but where's the money? So one of the reasons we exist is to answer that question. And not only to answer it, but to predict it, to forecast it, and to always have the cash there.
And so how do you work out a 13-week cash flow in uncertain times like this right now?
Well, it comes back to the plans that you put in place. And so from those strategies that are around decisions on revenue and budget, revenue and costs, then the best guess that comes from that, because some of those new revenue strategies will be uncertain. They will be a try and tweak, a test and measure, and then correct. But the best guess based on those decisions that are made creates the budget and creates the cash flow forecast. And the budget may look good, but one of our favorite sayings, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, cash flow is reality. So while the best guess at that budget may show a profit, when it's converted into a cash flow forecast, it may look different and there might be some holes. So that then needs some further decisions to be made around how to close those holes, whether to get some funding from a different source that might be available, or whether to put in place negotiations with customers and suppliers to move cash flow, to change the timing of cash flow, because it's all about timing. And there are various ways to actually to make that happen and to create a win-win situation, which is what we're about.
Yeah. And there has been ones about going to your landlord and seeing if you can put your rent on hold. Then there are the issues of the landlord also has a loan, and then it rolls on from there. So it really is, from what I'm hearing, is that you need a strategy, you need to put together a budget, I highly recommend that. I think people should be going to get some professional advice as well, not only from an accountant or bookkeeper, but I think like a CFO as well. A lot of businesses that we work with, they don't have a CFO. Within their organisation, they're generally smaller businesses. So whether they're delivering accredited or non-accredited, they're generally going to be smaller. They could even be just one, what we call a one-man band, where it might just be them. But I think forecasting is definitely something that they need to do. And that leads me into, where do you think businesses will be in the next 6 months? 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. Well, I think for some, they will try to go back to the way it was before, because that was comfortable. But I think the businesses that will thrive in the years to come are those who actually take the best out of what they're doing through this period right now and make that a permanent change. In some cases, that's going to be new products that address needs that maybe weren't always there, but have just been highlighted during this period. In some cases, it's going to be methods of delivery. Sometimes it will be team. It might be repositioning of team members, and that stays the same. In some situations, it's going to be technology, and I'm seeing a lot of examples where this is really just bringing forward something that was going to happen anyway. Some obvious examples are in technology. Some other examples are just in the way that businesses are engaging with their customers.
And particularly the training industry. Like I've been talking about it for years, that training organisations need to have an online model as part of their delivery method. So I foresee that will be a massive change, and how we work also. We don't necessarily need to be in the office every day.
Yes. And I much prefer the term physical distancing than social distancing. I think we've been more socially connected in the last 6 weeks than ever before.
Yeah, definitely. I've never had so many Zoom calls.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. This has shown us that it's possible to still be connected, but I'd even use the term hyperproductive as well, because we've had to respond. And when I say we, I mean so many businesses collectively have had to respond to changes very, very quickly. Now, we don't want to, and I think physically can't keep up the rhythm that we've had, and maybe the hours that we've had to work for the last 6 weeks. But it has shown us what we are actually capable of as business owners, and where we can improve efficiency without sacrificing connection.
Yeah. I know for my team alone, we now we have 2 huddles a day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. We also have Frock Up Friday, so we get dressed up on Friday, and we have Dress Up Thursday. So we have a theme different every Thursday. And we didn't have that in the office. And it's one way. And on a Friday afternoon, we have our drinks. So we have drinks together after work, which we've never done as a team before. So I think the way we work is, totally different. And it is, we're still socializing even more, I think. Maybe not meeting new people.
One of our daughters is working from home, or at least 4 days a week. She's in customer service in an IT business. She looks after the support tickets that come in. And being an IT business, they measure, they have the capacity to, and this one certainly does, they measure everything. And one of the team who's responsible for that area told her that she is getting through twice as much at home than she was before. And she did feel that. And she was saying to us even before she got that feedback, that she has so many less interruptions that she felt like she was doing a lot more. But to actually get that measure of 2 times productivity, she was blown away.
Yeah, yeah. And I think maybe more people should be measuring that
Mm-hmm,
productivity.
mm-hmm,
I know sometimes I get to the end of the day and I feel like, what have I done?
mm-hmm,
But then when I look back, I think, okay, actually, I've done this, I've done this.
mm-hmm,
That's what's really good about to-do lists, even if
mm-hmm.
you put it on and then tick it off,
Sure. Yes.
because you at least know what you've done.
Yes.
So, a good question I'd like to ask you, and I know you like this one. How do you
Mm-hmm.
keep motivated each day?
Mm-hmm. I relate more to the word inspired than motivated. And so I do that in a number of different ways. I think it's really important to have a good morning routine. And a well-known saying is, win the morning, win the day. So for me, that involves, I make my wife a cup of coffee and take it into her. That's the first thing I do. And that's just a nice little habit to sort of anchor the start of the day. And then I sit down for usually a 10-minute meditation. I use the app called Calm on my phone, which has a different meditation every day. And I find that is really good just for calming and for grounding for the beginning of the day. An important part is exercise. I normally do that at the end of the day, and that is one thing that has been difficult to, coming back to the word motivation, difficult to stay motivated on, because I actually get a lot out of doing that in a group, and I'm unable to go to my gym classes at the moment. But I do that with one of my daughters. Not every day of the week, the way I was before, but a few times a week we get out and do something. So that's a really important one. Recognizing the wins, and just like you said before, Angela, about actually acknowledging what you have achieved. That's a really important one. And actually, just to bounce around a bit, I'll go back to the start of the day. One of the things that we do together as a 2-person team, we start the day with what we call whiffles, what I feel like saying. And it's a really good way to actually to check in with how I'm feeling, with what's positive and what might be challenging, and to actually get that out and to express it. And even just to say it can make a big difference, but also saying it opens up opportunities for others to support and to ask for support. Yeah. And that's a really important one as well. And as far as inspiration overall, for us, it's about the impact that we make, the impact on the business owners who we work with, and impacts in other ways. For example, we are business members of an organization called B1G1, which is Buy One, Give One. And that organization connects business owners with worthy causes around the world and gives us the opportunity to say things like, I've even got it hooked up to say that every time I send an email, then we'll give a day of access to water to a family in Ethiopia. Or every time I make a new LinkedIn connection, then we'll give a day of access to a solar kit for rural families in Cambodia. So knowing that by doing what we do, we can make impacts small and big for people who we do know, as well as people who we don't know and will never meet. That's what keeps us going.
And that aligns very much with why I do what I do with the training industry, because I see the impact of what we do when we provide quality education is we enable people to achieve and have confidence in themselves and excel in an area that they may never have even thought of before. I think education is a very important area for us all to work in, and the opportunities for education. Yeah,
absolutely. And of the we align very much with the 17 UN Sustainability Development Goals.
Yeah.
And education is my number one. And that's the premise of what we do. We're not about being the experts who a business owner has to keep coming to and rely on. We are about educating business owners and their teams on finance so that they can actually leverage and grow and make their biggest impact. And the final thing I'll add in terms of motivation and inspiration is our business mentors and business coaches, and we have several, but connecting with them, and they have shown tremendous leadership through this period. Regular touch points with them in different ways and with their communities as well, especially during this period of not having that physical connection that provides us with social connection and definitely motivation and inspiration and encouragement and ideas as well.
Yeah, and now is the time when you need to lean on those mentors, and it not only benefits you, it also benefits them, and it also benefits the people that you're working for or with.
Sure.
Yeah, because they're getting the benefits from that. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. That was really insightful. So many different, we learn a bit about what you do, but also how you've changed and adapted your business. And it's mainly been because of what you've needed to do with your clients, not necessarily your business and how you run. I think this has been very valuable for a lot of people who will learn a lot from, how you've been doing things and what they need to put in place within their organisation. So, thank you very much for attending this podcast today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Angela.
Excellent. Thank you. You've been listening to the Education in Isolation podcast with me, Angela Connell. If you'd like access to the show notes and other resources to find subscription options, you can find us at educationinisolation.com. The Education in Isolation podcast is proud to be part of the Experts on Air podcast network.